Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. For today, I have picked up the LeetCode problem number 534. The problem name is Gameplay Analysis 3, and I think I have solved other two in the previous video. This problem comes at medium level. Alright, let's look at the problem description. So in this problem, we have the same table, the one which we have used in the previous two problem. This table has player ID, device ID, event date, games played, and the combination of player ID and the event date plays uh, as a primary key in this table. So according to question, we have to write a SQL to report for each player and date how many games played so far by the player, and that would be the total number of games played by the player until that day. Let's look at the example for more clarity. So in this activity table, we have the list of players, device ID, and on what day they played that game and how many number of games they played on that day. In the final output, we have to consolidate their number of games played until that day. So if we look at the player 1, the player 1 played his first game on March, and then May, and then June. So for the March month, the game played would be 5. For May month, it would be 11. And for June, it's gonna be 12. So it's just a cumulative addition as we are moving forward in the time. So for this kind of problem where the cardinality does not change from their input table to output table, but still we have to calculate a new column depending on some logic, there are multiple ways to solve it. Like the very simple way to solve this is like we can use a select clause inside a select clause. It would be a kind of nested for loop, and then for each of the player we can calculate the number of games played so far, and we can show that to the outer query. Let me write the scripts, and then it will be easy to visualize how that is happening. So for that, I am going to run the select star from activity table, and in the final output we have 3 column: player ID, event date, which are similar to the input table, and this column is game played so far. So this is the column which we are going to derive. So in order to derive this column, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a inner query for this column, and this column will calculate the cumulative number of game played so far, and we will show that as a new column in the final output. And while looking up in this second table, which is same as activity, we are going to use some join condition, so that way we will get the right calculated number of game played so far, where let's name this as B, and the outer activity query or table will be named as A. And I'm going to close this here just for the better formatting. Where so in order to get the correct join, or in order to get the correct number of game played so far, we have to first join based on the player ID, because we are trying to calculate the game played so far for the same player, right? So my player ID will act as a join, a dot player ID and b dot player ID. Then the second join is like more important, and that would happen on the event date. So while joining based on the event date, we have to make sure that all the records which we are fetching from the inner query is less than the event date from the outer query, and that is the only way we can fetch the related record from the inner query and get the sum of game played. So how we can do that? We can do the join depending on the event date. So my inner query event date will be less than equal to the outer table event date. Okay, so now suppose like if I'm running this query, the inner query, for the first record, the event date is March, right? So there's only one record which is equal to March or less than March. But if I run the same query for the second record of player 1, we can get two record. The first record which is equal to March, and the second is which is equal to May, because my condition says that pick all the record which is either equal to the event date from the outer activity table or any date which is less than the outer activity table. And if we follow the similar logic, we will fetch three records when the outer query is running for this third record. And in the inner query, we can just do the sum of game played. I think that should be it. And the result from the inner query is called as game played so far. So in the final output, we have player ID, event date, game played so far. Player ID, event date, and game played so far. I think we are good with the query. Let's run it and see what comes up. Okay, it looks like there's some syntax error. Okay, so I am missing the AND clause in the inner query. Let's run this. Again, syntax error. Okay, let me look into it. Okay, all right, I found it. So the b act dot activity is not the correct column. That's the table name. So I have to correct the column. B dot event date. Let's run it. Okay, so now the query ran, but the result is not correct. Okay, so I think I have come across this issue before. So it's an issue with the event date format. We can correct the format using the toChar function, and we'll use the correct date format syntax, and that is YYY MMDD, and it will be named as event date. Okay, so still this is wrong. Okay, so we can return the result in any order. Looks like my alias is wrong. Okay, all right. So the event date from the inner table activity has to be less than the outer table event date, and I think I have given the wrong alias to these tables. So this should be A and this should be B. All right. So now this is running fine. Let's submit it. Okay, so the solution is accepted. Let's go back to description. So this is one way to solve the problem, and I would like to check out another way, which is using join between the same table. Let's work on that solution. So in order to work on that other solution, I am going to delete this and write that other solution from scratch. In the second approach, I'm not going to calculate the total game played so far using the inner query. rather in this approach, I'm going to join the activity table with the activity table itself depending on some condition, and I'll calculate the final column in the outer query. And when we join the same table with the same table, it's very similar to the nested for loop in regular programming language. What happens in the nested for loop is the inner query loop runs for the outer loop depending on some given condition. In our case, the condition is based on the combination of player ID and the event date. Let's write the logic. So I'm going to do the select star from activity table, call it A, and I'm joining with the same activity table, which makes it for loop. And in the where condition, I'm going to use the player ID. So basically, my first table is going to be the table which will be acting as the second for loop, and I'm going to calculate the total game played so far using the first table, which is called as A. So and when I'm calculating it, I'm calculating the number depending on the same player ID, but my event date is changing because when I'm calculating the total number game played for third record of player 1, I have to consider all three records, and this is where we are going to use the less than equal to join condition for the event date between these two tables. So the first condition would be a dot player id equal to b dot player id, and second condition is a dot event date will be less than equal to b dot event date. All right, so this will give me the results very similar to, let me make it more interactive by putting some record. So if I'm calculating for player 1, before we do that, let's write down what all columns I'm trying to pull in depending on the join. So I'll get the a dot player id, which is going to be same from both the table, and then a dot event date, b dot event date, and then a dot game played so far. So these are the 4 columns which I'm trying to derive, and I'm not going to use the column as it is. This I'm doing for example, like how it will show me for player number 1. So if I just use the condition player id equal to 1, which is a dot player id, let's see what we get. And we can do the order by a dot event date. We will use b dot event date because b dot event date is the column which is going to be consistent even though when a dot event date is not going to be same across all the record. Let's run it. Runtime error, a dot player, a dot event date, b dot event date. So I can name that a dot event date. Will this work? Okay, I know why this is wrong. We have to use the player ID. The column name was wrong. Let's run it. Okay, so we can see here in the output for each of the b dot event date, we are getting multiple a dot event date depending on the date. So for example, for For the March date, we will have only one record. And then for the May date, we will have two record. And then for June, we will have three record. So this is how I want to get the record, and then I will do the group by depending on the event date and the player ID. So that way I'll get this column calculated correctly for our output. Alright, so I will remove the columns which are not needed in our final output. We are going to display the b.event date because that's what we want in the output, and we will be calculating the a.game played depending on our group by, and the group by, and we will remove this. Group by would be a.player ID and b.event date. Where is the event date? Here. We don't have to do the order by because we can display the result in any order. Let's run it. Okay, so before we run it, we have to change the format because that's the issue we came across in the previous approach, and we will use this format. And we will name this as the event date, and this third column will be named as game played so far. Let's run it. Okay, runtime error. Let me look into it. So to char b.event date, I'm joining these two. Group by, this is not good. Okay, so after giving the alias, we have to give the comma for the third column. Okay, so this solution is accepted. Let's submit it. Nice, the solution is accepted for all the use cases. Let's go back to description. Alright, so with this I will wrap up the video for today. This is a nice problem, and we tried to solve this using two approach, which is again similar conceptually, but syntax wise it's little different. I think we are good with this problem. Let's close the video for today. Thanks a lot for watching my content. Please subscribe to my channel for more SQL videos and leave a comment or question if anyone has. Thank you.